Welcome to the Onyx Pathcast. I'm this week's host, Dixie Cochran, here with Eddie Webb.
Hello.
And Eddie Webb.
Hello.
Yes, we have unceremoniously kicked Matthew out of this podcast.
Yes.
He tried to join, and we said, no, be gone.
I slammed a door in his face.
We said, we have our allocation of Brits on this podcast already. And we don't need you here.
It's true.
And with that, I will go ahead and introduce our guests since they're already in the room. We have with us Ian AA Watson.
Ahoy, hoy.
And Christopher Ellen.
Hello, hello.
See, there's our Brit. We have a Brit. We're good. All you need is one, right?
Yeah, it's as much
true.
as we're
Yep,
rationing in these post-Brexit days.
Yeah, we have to pay a much higher tax for a Brit now.
Yeah, sorry about that.
And we are here today to talk about an upcoming book, which is called either Victorian Mage or Mage the Victorian Age, or something along that, depending on who you talk to. So,
Yes.
First question then. Ian, Chris, what's it called?
What is the title, please?
I'm doubting myself now you've said that. I think it's Victorian Mage, but now I'm uncertain.
We've been calling it Victorian Mage internally for so long, and every now and then somebody will pop up and be like, Mage the Victorian Age. And I'm like, well, that rhymes and it's twee, but okay. But I don't actually know what's going to be on the cover. But it is about Mage the Ascension, 20th Anniversary Edition, in the Victorian era. So no matter what you call it, the title still makes sense.
See, I recorded the Kickstarter video like yesterday.
Okay.
I was saying Victorian Mage, but as I was putting the video together, I saw all the graphics that Mike had put together. It said Mage the Ascension 20th Anniversary Edition, Victorian Age. So I don't know what it's called.
Who knows?
I'm going to rely on the art that he put together and just hope that no one listens to this podcast and realizes that what I'm saying doesn't match what's on screen.
Well, Rich is going to be listening to this.
It's a
He
lovely
listens
surprise.
to all of our podcasts.
Rich,
But
quick, look the other way.
So if you want to come down from on high, Rich, and tell us what this book is called, no one will be upset about it because we clearly don't know. That said, any Mage fans probably know that this book has had kind of a long, beleaguered history. It's bounced around between a few devs. It's gone through a couple of different draft processes. Part of that is just because this book is really complicated compared to a lot of our other source books.
Mhm.
Whereas things like Gods and Monsters, is about Gods and Monsters. And we had, Technocracy Reloaded, which is pretty self-explanatory. Like, we've got a lot of these books that are kind of like self-explanatory. Like, it is modern day, here's some antagonists, or here's some whatevers. This one is the Victorian era, and unlike some other books we've done, this one spans the entire Victorian era. So I will let Ian and or Chris talk a little bit more about how that process worked as far as getting it to be as all-encompassing as it is.
Yeah, I think it's sort of baked into the structure of the book. Obviously, the various sections talk about what's going on throughout the age, sometimes in key snapshots, sometimes looking at the broader process of what goes on. So there's a chapter about the order of reason, the technocracy, which obviously talks about some of that evolution throughout this era. So there's that timeline breadth, but we've also got geographical breadth. We've got a gazetteer chapter that kind of tries to take a very brief look, because you can't, in a book this size, even a book this size, you can't go, there's only so much in depth you can go, but tries to take a look at most of the globe, really. This isn't a book, despite the name, that is just about the smoggy streets of London, or indeed of the wider British Isles. It tries to take a broader view of what's going on across the world. And so hopefully the Gazetteer chapter will present that in a way people are going to find compelling, looking at what mages are up to, in particular the Order of Reason across the globe, and the local mage crafts and traditions that they're running into.
That's really awesome. So how did y'all approach doing it as kind of like a globalist book, doing it where, how do you span the entire world for 100 years in one RPG source book?
With difficulty, I guess. Ian can probably speak a bit more about.
Is it a 12-volume series?
No. Ian can probably speak a bit more about how the history of
is...
the magic is presented. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, part of it is because, unlike, say, Victorian Age vampire, where every clan is more or less found everywhere in the world. So if you're focusing on just England, it's not a big deal because you're going to find all the clans there. In our case, we have a lot of traditions from around the world, a lot of different crafts. So we can't really talk about those crafts without talking about where those magical traditions come from.
Mm-hmm.
So the Ngoma from Africa, the Taftani from the Middle East, the Dalushi from they're from China or Japan. Jeez,
China, I think. There's quite a lot of crafts and traditions.
yeah, yeah, they're Chinese. I always lose track. I apologize. But yeah, so like the different crafts and even the traditions, the Akashiana, it's hard to talk about different magical traditions, especially in the Victorian period, without talking about where they come from. So it was important to us to talk about what's going on in the Victorian period all around the world. This is the time when the sun never sets on the British Empire. So there's this imperialist attitude, this the colonialism happening all around the world.
Right.
So it gave us a real opportunity to talk about everything that's going on.
So, Chris, what? Because you two are co-developers, how did y'all divide that work? Like, what did you take on, Chris, as
Well-
your kind of developmental area, so we know what questions to ask everybody?
Yeah, well, as you know, things were still shifting around as we brought on with the project. So I was originally brought on principally to provide sort of, if you like, developmental backup, but also a historical look. I'm a trained historian, to keep an eye on what was going on and make sure it wasn't going too wildly. The real history, as it were, wasn't going too wildly, of course. So. As the project then shifted over, I ended up with a fair chunk of the general, what do I call the grunt work of development, where you've got to go through, check all the text, see what needs to, not editorial level stuff, but really looking at whether the ideas are being presented the way you want them to come across. And certainly my discussions with Ian was really providing the genius of the mage lore knowledge, the guy who can look at everything on there and say, right, this makes sense within Mage the Ascension's lore, within Mage the Ascension structure. I was generally focusing on more, I suppose, the sort of the structural logistical work of getting the development moving and the historical viewpoint of it for myself.
Right. So that means, I guess, that Ian picked up more of the mage lore. Is that correct, Ian?
Yeah. There was, at that time, sort of that development gap where Chris knew what he was doing, but he didn't know Mage as well. Whereas my first written credit in the RPG industry was in Guide to the Traditions like 20 years ago. So I like to think I know my Mage a little bit. So I came in, I dove into the lore, I put in some, like, there are some really deep dive tidbits that go back to like some of the earliest Mage supplements and have never shown up since. I made sure to squeeze some of those in there. It's a real treat to get to explore this era.
Ian, just because I think most of our listeners know you as like the Trinity guy or the Bloodlines guy or the shitposting guy.
Especially the latter, Ian. I mean, really.
Yeah.
So what's your history with Mage? This is usually like a question we ask people their first time on the show, but we've never actually asked you about Mage specifically.
Let's say go back to around 2000. White Wolf had just opened the New Bremen chats online, a moderated chat environment, and I was almost immediately, like, I was one of the first storytellers recruited for that, and almost immediately I was sort of put in the position of the head Mage storyteller. So I ran everything to do with Mage. That was for about a year. I did that, and around that time, Jess Hainig, who was the Mage developer at the time. He asked my opinion on a few things. I didn't do any formal writing, but I ended up with a credit for additional contributions in the Guide to the Traditions. A few years later, I started up the White Wolf Wiki, and one of the first sections I started filling out was the Mage stuff, because that's what I knew best. Right after Onyx Path started, we got to doing the last 4 of the revised era convention books.
Mm-hmm.
And for the final 3 of them, Ryan Macklin, the developer on those, he brought me on board to check some numbers, because some of the dots on one of the character sheets for the first one we didn't totally add up right, so he just brought me on board to do a double check on the whole thing. And I've just sort of been, while I haven't been working on any major Mage products since then, I've just sort of been a little Mage cheerleader off at the side while I've had my head in Trinity. And then this opportunity came up, like, hey, we need some guy who knows Mage lore. And me, hello, me.
It was funny too, because that was when Matthew and I were trying to find people for the project, and like I had no idea you had this Mage history at the time, because I haven't known you as long, so I just knew you as like Trinity. And then this scope, and you were like Trinity, also Mage.
Yeah.
Also Mage is also a thing. And I was like, oh, well, that's useful. That's good to know. I had no idea. So Chris, what's your kind of personal history with Mage the Ascension? Is it a game that you played for a while? Is it kind of a new thing for you for this project? Where are we at?
It's new to some extent for me about this project. Not sort of completely new. For a long time, one thing I found, while I played a little bit of the World Dance games back in the late 90s, I guess, and obviously there was Vampire Bloodlines, the computer game that loads of people love and loads of people brought a lot of people back to the game as well. Mage was one of the ones I hadn't really touched, although I got an awful lot of information about it by osmosis from forum flame wars and online arguments about it. It was always one of those ones which was very famous for having a very passionate fan base. And I picked up a certain amount of understanding about it and the core concepts, and and everyone's heard about stuff about mages going into Jupiter in spacecraft and all that kind of stuff. So I'd picked away at it from time to time, and then when I was asked to come on this project, I really started to get much more to grips with it, which was an interesting experience, both from learning more about it and the ways it doesn't necessarily meet up to some of the way the things I thought about it that maybe you pick up from the pop culture from the assets from the sort of the community commentary. Like every game, the game that lots of people talk about on the forums and the game that's actually in the book can be a bit different. But it's been intriguing as well to get that sort of first step into it via Victorian Mage, because to veer slightly from it, much like the reason I love the Dark Era's books for the Chronicles of Darkness, I do love these kind of setups where you're taking a modern day horror setup and then basically going back in time with it and trying to see how it fits together with the changes that are necessitated by that and with the links that need to be made. And how you kind of reconcile a concept like Mage the Ascension, very high concept stuff, with historical events like this has been really enjoyable to see, and see what the writers have been tackling in the process with it as well.
Yeah, totally. It's always really interesting too, because throughout the modern day books, people will drop like little historical tidbits where it's like, oh, back in 1850, we changed from this to this. And it's like, now you have to put that in the book,
Right.
I mean, I have no doubt there is going to be some stuff where people are going to pick the book up and go, but in this source book from 25 years ago, there was this mention of this thing that was once mentioned ever. And while I know Ian sort of tried to get some of that stuff in there, I'm sure there's going to be some things people pick out and be like, oh, this didn't get mentioned. And partly that's because, with a project like this and with a line like Mage the Ascension, or any game line, I guess, that has that sweeping expanse of history and published products, at the end of the day, we have to make a single published product with this that makes sense and is coherent inside itself. So we had to choose a way that this was going to be presented and choose the story, I suppose, of the era that's going to be presented. So I'm sure there's going to be some stuff from some of those past mentions that doesn't get in, but I think hopefully the book will still be the better for it with the focus that we have chosen.
Yeah, I mean, not not every book is Beckett's Jihad Diary, you know,
No,
where
no,
like
Right.
no, it sounds
Matthew
like-
and Neil just put every single reference they could possibly cram in there in. And there were still things that people were like, oh, you left this out. And it's like,
Yeah.
it was every book. We went through every vampire book and did our best. And with Victorian Mage, I know because this isn't that kind of like, you know, love letter to the whole line. It's specifically an M20 support product. So
Yeah.
if your, you know, favorite thing from second edition didn't get in, that's okay.
Yeah.
Just like a note out there to all the fans when the errata sheet happens. Like don't be upset because something from an earlier edition didn't make it in, because it's not about the earlier edition. It's about M20. So
I'd rather, in a product like this, I'd rather the writers have the freedom to make the best product they can within the framework they're given, say the Victorian era, and draw in what they like and love from the rest of the line without feeling so beholden to it that they feel maybe straitjacketed. Or if there are, you know, in some cases there might be plain up contradictions or situations or mentions dropped elsewhere that don't necessarily make a lot of sense once you plant them in the era firmly, and changes have to be made around those. So I think it's better to go into the product trying to make the best product you can for the remit you've got, rather than trying to make Beckett's Jihad Diary Mark II, but with Victorian Mage instead. Yeah, as you say.
Mike Chaney would kill us if we brought him a mage version of Beckett's Jihad Diary. That's a beautiful book, but keep in mind that you know, the more intensive our layouts are, the more Mike has to work. So this book does span the nearly 100-year period that is Victorian era. How did you go about doing that? I mean, that's something that, you know, history books have published several volume sets on. You could write an entire book about like the Diamond Jubilee, for instance. So how, Chris, did you like decide kind of what bits of history to put in and what bits of history to kind of skim over?
Yeah, so obviously, so setting aside for a moment the mage history in the book, you know, it's covered in some of the chapters, like the Order of Reason chapter, the Traditions chapter. Looking at the rest of what needs to go in there, like you say, about the Jubilee, about Crystal Palace, about the World Exhibition, and the wider events in the world. To some extent, you know, by the form of the structure and the word count assigned, all that, you know, how we did it was we broke it down regionally. And then within those regions, writers calling forth sections of what was going on, calling forth facets of what was going on to focus on. You know, at the end of the day, even with the chunky section we've given over to the World Gazetteer, we can't cover everything in the world that happens. As you say, we would be writing a whole series of thick textbooks. So instead, to some extent, it's up to the individual writers for their sections as to what they felt was evocative, what they had good ideas for calling out that would be meaningful from a mage perspective, because some stuff in the area is just so important and weighty. You know, the scramble for Africa, the rush of imperialism across the world, it needs to be addressed. But once you start drilling down into local areas, onto the specific continents, you can't do everything. So it's to some extent it's a judgment call on the part of the writers for what grabs them and what for them makes them go, right, this is material that we can use in Mage. Because at the end of the day, this isn't a history book, it's a Mage, the Ascension book. So the history that is in it needs to be usable for Mage, the Ascension games. It needs to be usable for storytellers. So
Right.
there is a bit of variation across the board in terms of how that material is covered because of the different writers' attitudes and preferences around the sections they're covering. But it's therefore... it's as brief as we can get away with it in these overall sketches of these areas, while still giving you a good idea of what's going on a given continent in a given region across the era. In some cases, we drill down a bit more in terms of what happens as the era progresses. In others, it's less relevant to do so because changes in an area can make that progress less relevant. Or there's something really important that happens at a key period that needs to be called out, and especially with some of the less pleasant stuff that happens during this era. Let's make no bones about it. You know, this is the era of imperialism. This is a very dark era in humanity's history, and we needed in these write-ups to get both the sense that the people who live in these places who are on the other end of imperialism, their stories matter, and these events need to be addressed as well. And sometimes that, therefore, is what gets the focus rather than attempt to do like a full timeline for every area that covers a bunch of stuff that maybe won't be so relevant to a lot of games.
Totally, yeah. I know that our team on this was fairly diverse, which is good for this sort of team, especially because, you know, we all know what the optics are of having a Victorian book headed by a white British guy.
Yeah.
So we like definitely tried to diversify as far as the writing team went, and I know that when we're doing the initial outlines, we were very like, please look into like the area of the world we're going to be covering. Like, we
Yeah.
really want to give a perspective from a lot of different people, not just, you know, Europeans at this time.
Yes, and I think that's really important, that addressing the fact that, yeah, the people across the globe who are sort of experiencing the nightmare of imperialism, their stories matter. They are not just, you know, again, we're talking about imperialism. We're talking about some dark chapters in human history. We want to look at the stuff that happens among the people who are having to survive and endure this. And that's both in terms of people in areas of the world who were invaded or colonized or otherwise suffered oppression at the hands of the British Empire and other major empires, but also people like the populations even in Europe and in Britain who were, shall we say, less well off and not doing so well with the fruits of empire. And really trying to not tell their story, but make sure that the book doesn't just go, oh, isn't it wonderful to be a wizard in a waistcoat with a monocle? You know, this is a time of conflict. It is a time of often brutal and bloody conflict. It is people playing games with people's lives and entire regions and countries for the sake of ideas and ideals that are anchored in some beliefs that we would now consider pretty horrendous. So we don't shy away from that. It's simply a part of the era, and Mage kind of has to address that.
Totally. I mean, as much fun as it does sound to be a wizard in a waistcoat with a monocle, although when I say that, all I can think of is Bustopher Jones from Cats, so that's a whole different experience.
I hear he's not skin and bones. In fact, he's remarkably fat.
It's true. Yeah, so now we're doing Cats lyrics. Either way, yes, as cool as it does sound, it is really important to have, you know, the kind of perspective from all over. You're absolutely correct. Because we can't just sit here and have this, you know, weird imperialist game. It kind of reminds me of how we do Scion, actually. Where like we try to get a really diverse team, we try to make sure we have people from different backgrounds, but occasionally we have to tweak something because it won't work for a game. And at the end of the day, it does need to be a playable game. So either way, monocles and corsets and Bustopher Jones aside, is there anything that was really important for you to include in this book? Like, you definitely wanted to make sure it didn't get left out, whether it's a mage thing that happened in that era, because I know that some very large mage plot things happen in the Victorian era, or just something globally. Ian?
One of the key things that happens in this period is in 1851, there's the Victorian Reformation of the Order of Reason, where it becomes the Technocratic Union. And that transition is sort of a major part of the plot of Victorian Mage. So obviously it's important for us to have that in there. And towards the close of the era, in 1897, is the Albertan Reformation, where the sort of transitional period of the Technocratic Union becomes more what we recognize as the modern technocracy.
Right.
So we wanted to cover a lot of that. Mostly the coverage that the Order of Reason gets in the book is that middle period, where it's transitioning between the old Order of Reason to the modern technocracy. Let's see, anything else that like there's a lot of like little references to things here and there. You know, like in 1892, Kepler and Captain Savage set foot on the moon.
Like you do.
That's in here. Yeah. Tychoides discovers Autochtonia in 1893 on the opposite side of Earth's orbit. Just lots of there's a lot of stuff happening in the Victorian period, and we tried to get at least mentions of everything that we could in here. The only thing I can really think of offhand that we didn't at least include a mention of is Victoria Station, which is like an umbral space station that the Sons of Ether have. It was originally a train station from London, and it was like literally ripped out and pulled into the Umbra. I don't think we mentioned that at all. But that's such a minor thing compared to everything else that we have going on.
Well, we've mentioned it here now, so if you want to include that in your game, there you go. It's canon.
There you are.
Because everything we say on the podcast is canon.
Absolutely.
Wow. I've said some bad stuff on this podcast.
Canon. Sorry.
Damn it.
For you Trinity fans, the Pharaoh's Lightkeepers were founded by Mimes.
No.
And Chris, is there anything historically or geographically that you thought it was super important to include, or that even that someone surprised you with as far as one of the authors goes?
Mimes.
It's the Mimes,
Is it Mimes?
clearly.
Is
It's
it
Mimes.
Is it Mimes?
Yeah.
Mimes all the way down?
The interesting elements. There's a lot of stuff in history. We didn't want to shy away from, as I've said, the imperialism. We didn't want to try and paint this as something other than what it is, and that's important. But we also want to talk about what people are up to in these areas, so they're not simply relegated to as footnotes to a very not just Eurocentric, but obviously Victorian stuff is often generally very Anglo-centric. And there's a lot. There's a lot of stuff in there, even just looking at the other imperialist forces at work in some areas where, for instance, the British Empire didn't reach as effectively, and how people in areas try to deal with that, how they try and survive and resist, but also how once the imperial powers have sort of taken over areas, there's a lot of stuff going south. The South American section had some interesting elements in there, I think, with particular things like Brazil and Argentina, and some of the history there that I was less au fait with, less knowledgeable about, because it's never really been my area of study. So there's a lot of stuff in that surprised me, where writers have gone and done some research, found some interesting ideas that I'm just not aware of, partly because it's hard for any one person to do the research to encompass this whole thing.
Totally.
So what is there anything that was sort of really there was some interesting. One of the writers who did some work on the European section of the Gazetteer had some interesting stuff coming out of the warfare aspects of the time of wars fought in Europe, and some of the technological advancements that were occurring then and when they were occurring, and some of the things that they maybe didn't work out so well, like first attempts to use balloons to drop bombs and the like. And obviously we frame that in the context of the technocracy and the traditions and their own struggles. But there's a lot of this stuff in there that's it's just interesting in its own right, about the social, cultural changes and military changes going on across the area, the ways that technology was beginning to be used more, and it's for early applications and stuff. But yeah, it's hard for me to pick any one thing out because there's just so much.
Yeah, no, I've been reading over the world section recently, and it's a lot. It's a lot of information, but it's nice though, because if you pick the area where you'd like to set your game, then you can just kind of read that section if you want to.
Yeah,
you don't have to read the whole section, but if you need to know what's going on in, like, say, South America, then that is there, which is nice.
Yeah, and I will call out one bit I quite liked. I liked Hiromi's work on the section focusing on Asia, for giving a really good overview and quite in-depth overview of region, including a number of the countries and regions within Asia that maybe tend to get overlooked in a lot of material. There's some really good stuff there.
I'm really glad that that's for a period of time I was the developer on this until I realized it was a project that was a little bit outside of my scope. But that was one thing I was super passionate about when we were working on the outline, was making sure that, like, every single country around the globe got, at least a nod. Because there was so much going on then that wasn't like you said, about a third of the world at the time was under British rule, I think.
I don't know the exact portion, but it was quite a substantial amount.
Yeah, like there was a lot of the world under some form of British rule, but there were also a lot of other countries doing their own thing or actively fighting back against being colonized. So it's good to tell all of those stories as much as you can.
Yeah, and for me, I have a bit of thing. I was a little known fact about me. I was born in Thailand, so I tend to look out for whether games mention Thailand in their sections about like Southeast Asia, especially, just as a small person, sort of personal thing. So I tend to look out for that, and that's something Hiromi tackled, and there's some content in there relating to the Thai kingdom of the year and how things change there throughout the period. So that always tickles me whenever I see something in that kind of content, when the writer's gone out of their way to do the research and do some writing about my country of birth. I always appreciate that.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, I get the same feeling when I see stuff that's set in, certain parts of the South, even though it's not quite the same, because it's not a whole different country. But I get excited when something's set in, like, Atlanta. And I'm like, hey, I know that place, Very, very cool. So let's talk a little bit, Ian, about the structure of the book overall and kind of like what sort of mage things to be expected to see in the book as far as powers, traditions, anything new and exciting.
Well, like I mentioned previously, this is like a large part of the point of this is the reformation of the Order of Reason, and that feeds into a lot of the colonialist themes of the book. And that's not to say that the technocratic union are bad and the traditions are good necessarily, because the Order of Reason the Order of Hermes is also benefiting from this, as is the Chorus Celestial. So it's not as clear cut as some would have it be. So there's a lot of infighting within the traditions, as the technocratic union is sort of coming to the forefront and sort of taking over their place in the minds of the sleepers. So the traditions are on the back foot. The crafts are on the back foot. It's a great era because there's a lot of, like, it's almost like the last gasp of mysticism in the collective consciousness. But there's also like the rise of industrialization with like steamworks and the spread of rail, like the railway network going everywhere. It's really fun in sort of similar ways that the Renaissance setting, Sorcerer's Crusade, was,
Right.
where it was this confluence of magic, science, and faith. So it's sort of the same thing reflecting, but a more modern period. I'm sorry, did that answer your question?
It answered part of it. Are there any like powers, merits, various actual like active things your character can do that are new in this?
I mean, Mage has always been about doing anything.
Right.
So no new powers necessarily, because it's the spheres, right? Everyone knows the 9 spheres. You're still capable of doing anything. I think we have Paradox working a little bit differently, because in every single, like, I realized earlier, I think this is the first World of Darkness game to have 4 distinct time periods. There's Dark Ages Mage, the Renaissance period in Sorcerer's Crusade, Victorian Mage, and then the modern era. Anyway, so Paradox works slightly differently in every single period, as it evolves from the scourge of the Dark Ages into modern Paradox. So that's really the big difference in how mages work between now and the modern period is Paradox, I think.
Yeah, I think the thing that I don't know how this compares to the earlier iterations of the line, but I suppose the other thing is that since there's no consensus, everything magic works on territories, where the beliefs and effects that hold sway will vary quite a lot. So the technocracy haven't yet established their consensus. What counts as, and we've got different terms for some of the effects and some different rules around them, with elegant magic, uncanny magic, and catastrophic magic. And obviously what counts as what, where, is very, very malleable. And this is also a big part of the struggle, the conflict that's going on with the Order of Reason at the moment, and why it's so important is that they are essentially in the process of trying to expand their consensus across the globe. But it does mean that mages traveling the world will find local conditions far more changeable, and far less. If you're a mage from London who's grown up in the mean streets of the East End, and you go off to India, you go off to Africa, you go off to wherever, you may well find that the local the magical territory does not think the things that you think are elegant or uncanny are
Right.
elegant or uncanny. There are places where some effects, in general, obviously, some effects are always going to be highly risking of paradox, or the straits, as it's called in the era. But there's a lot of stuff that's much more variable, or that means that local beliefs and local practices can have an edge against, say, the technocracies, the Order of Reason's own advance, until the Order of Reason's able to push, sort of tilt things the other way in their favor. So yeah, there's situations like, obviously firearms in the Wild West seem like they should be perfectly normal. They are. There's a certain point where firearms become predominant in public awareness and in pop culture about it. But very early on, if you have Order of Reason luminaries out there before the Colt guns and all that, and then Gatling guns are already in it, and one of them turns up with some rapid firing weapon, that's not necessarily going to be as smooth sailing as they hope it's going to be.
True. I can see that. So we are going to be putting this on Indiegogo, just for all the listeners out there who are used to us doing Kickstarters. This is kind of an experiment. We don't really know what we're going to do in the future. I've had a lot of people asking on the blog and stuff like, oh, are you moving to Indiegogo? Like, no, we're going to do it this time, and we're going to see how it works. Because, why not? Why not try other platforms? So that's something that we're hoping, because there's so many Mage fans out there, it'll be a smooth transition.
And there actually are some interesting changes that, if you don't mind me taking a moment to kind of talk through how
You're
it's
one
going
of
to
the
differ.
hosts of the Pathcast. Please talk.
Well, sure,
No.
but I want to. Fine. Kick me out too. Oot.
No more Eddie. It's just the Chris and Ian show. Get out.
Wait, what about
We're
me?
taking over.
Bye.
It's a complete takeover of the Pathcast.
Welcome to the Chris and Ian show, episode
This is a Victorian Mage cast now.
Yes. Welcome to the Victorian Pathcast. So for folks who are familiar with Kickstarter and aren't familiar with Indiegogo, there are going to be some changes you'd be aware of. The first is that, unlike Kickstarter, Indiegogo does charge at the moment you pledge. So unlike Kickstarter, where it's like, well, I'll pledge now, and then I'll have the money in my account in a week or so, you better have it right then, because it's going to check right then. If the project doesn't fund for some reason, it will refund your money to you. So you're not going to just keep the money even if it doesn't fund, but it does charge up front as opposed to at the back end. So that is one thing to be aware of. Another is that what they call perks, there's only going to be 3 of them, which are supporting Mage PDF and then the physical book. But then there's going to be a whole bunch of add-ons after you choose your perk. And that's where you can get the stuff like name in the book or whatever. And also retailers will have a separate option available to them they can contact James about. And then finally, unlike Kickstarter, where we have backer-only updates with the previews, we're going to be emailing all the backers of the project every Wednesday with the current status of the manuscript that we're sharing. So all the things that you expect to see in a Kickstarter are ultimately going to be there. It's just, it may come in a slightly different format. You may have to look at a slightly different place. We understand it's going to be a little new for folks, but feel free to jump in. There's still a comments section, so James will be your Indiegogo concierge this time around to help you out with questions or the like. But if you go, when the page goes live, you'll be able to see all the pictures that our art we've already gotten for it, and beautiful little kind of interstitial art pieces that lovely Meredith and Mike both make to kind of put into those. So it's going to be familiar. It's not going to be completely alien.
But it's going to be completely alien. We're going to write it all in Klingon.
Yes, that's true.
And so
I had forgotten that part. It's all in Klingon.
You have to speak Klingon to play Victorian Mage.
Specifically the 19th century version of Klingon.
Everything we say is canon, so.
Yes.
After we talked about mimes earlier, all I can think of since then is Mime, the silencing, and how that's a book we should make.
That's not a good title.
I think
I'm
you
into
mean
it.
that's the best title.
Either way, like I was saying, so we're going to be on Indiegogo this time around, see how it works. I'm super excited for this one.
Mhm.
I'm excited to see all the artwork for it because anyone who listens to the podcast knows that I'm into, Regency Victorian period drama type stuff. So super excited to see this one because I'm like, it's going to be all bustles and corsets and exciting clothes.
Mage the Bustles.
Mage, the bustling.
Right.
That's what it's called, right?
Right. Yeah, that's clearly the title now. Everything we say on this Pathcast is canon.
I don't think Rich is going to be happy with that. This new development that
He will
literally
not.
everything we say on the podcast is canon.
Well, if we bring him on the Pathcast, then I suppose that he can undo our canon by introducing new canon. Is canon additive or subtractive? That's the question.
You could just say that Rich is very happy that everything you say on the Pathcast is canon, and because everything you say on
there
the
we go.
Pathcast is canon, it's now canon that Rich is happy about it.
There we go.
There
see?
we go.
Solves the problem.
Perfect. Also, I think that everything that we say is canon. Rich still has some kind of like retcon power.
Oh, okay.
I just feel like it's the least we can do for him since he is, the boss.
As the creative director, I suppose we give him some chance to direct our creativity.
I'm gonna call it RichConning.
RichCon. That sounds like a convention that's just about Rich.
That could happen too.
It's actually a convention about Richie Rich.
Ooh, there we go.
It's a
I'm
very,
sorry,
very
we're talking
niche
about Richie
convention.
Rich now?
Yes.
I zoned out for the last 10 minutes because there's a void engineer named Xerxes Jones, and I've been trying to figure out how Buster Jones works with that.
Oh my god, that's exactly like my brain. I as listeners know, I have ADHD, and sometimes I'm like, even when we're recording, sometimes I'll start like thinking about some tangent. Like obviously, I was thinking about Mime the Asylum scene for way too long.
Right.
And then I have to like come back to reality and be like, what are we talking about? I have forgotten what we're talking about. But yeah, so getting a little near time, so I'm going to ask a couple of last questions. Ian, if there's anything you want people to know about Victorian Mage or the process, or just something that you're really excited about, what would be your main thing that you want to, talk at somebody about at a convention for 10 minutes?
Oh, geez. There's so many little references that I snuck in there, and I don't want to spoil any of it, but I'm eager for Mage fans to discover them, and I'm looking forward to some of the discussion that crops up. Okay, I'll spoil one of them.
Yay, spoilers!
There's a brief point where in Mage development, like when the game line was first being conceived, I think the Sons of Ether were at one point going to be called the Pupils of Parmenides. And there is a reference in the original Sons of Ether tradition book to the Pupils of Parmenides as like sort of like one of their earlier transitional forms. And that has never been brought up again. But I put a reference in here.
Nice.
So that's a little callback to people who have been playing Mage for a long time. And I put lots of like little different things. Like there's something about Midnight Circus in there too. It's fun. It's just a bundle of fun, and I really hope people enjoy this project.
I like describing a book of ours as a bundle of fun. That's like the opposite of most of our books. Most of our books are like, here's a bundle of
paid
horrific pain that you can put your players through.
It's still the World of Darkness, but the development process was fun, and this is sort of like everyone loves the Victorian period for a lot of different reasons, and this just digs into a lot of that and explores it in a way that I don't think has been before, even within Mage. So it's fun in that respect. It is, after all, a game, right?
What? We don't make games.
Shocking.
We make treatises.
Yes.
That's canon. It's canon now.
Find it at your local reference library.
All right, Chris, same question. What is in the book that you are super excited about people getting to read? You can give us a little spoiler. It's fine. I like spoilers.
Yeah, so for me, I think it's this is one of the first projects I've done development work on for Onyx Path, and obviously I came on it during the process. So for me, to some extent, the book is other people's child in terms of the conceiving of it and the mage elements of it. So I suppose what I'm hoping is that in terms of the take on the Victorian era that the book presents, I'm hoping people will find it sensitive in terms of its treatment of the topics at hand. Because Ian's bundle of fun, I am at the other end of the horrible stuff. There's some pretty dark stuff in that. I hope it's also I'm really hoping people find it gameable. I'm hoping people find it useful, both informative but also for their games, that it doesn't come across as being too much textbook-like, dry history, that it's something that feels appropriately interconnected with the context of Mage the Ascension. So I'm excited to see how people take it and sort of apply it to their games. I don't think there's anything really spoilery that I can think of that is, I want to see people hit this tidbit or the like. There's some stuff I really enjoyed going through. There's some of the alternate, the sort of suggested ways to play that are a different take on a chronicle, like themed to the era, like an epistolary chronicle, letter writing chronicle and the like. Which I'm interested to see what people think of those different takes, and if they want to run with any of that, if that inspires people to maybe do a slightly different style of game, then that's quite interesting to me.
I think that it'd be really cool to do kind of a combination, like traditional game and epistolary game. I can never say that word properly on the first try.
Yeah.
Epistolary. Nah. But like, what if you had two different groups who were playing Victorian Mage separately, but then they were like talking about their exploits and stuff via letters and kind of letting that affect each other? That would be
nice.
super cool, I think.
Yeah.
I just like writing letters. I feel like no one writes letters anymore. It makes me sad.
Particularly letter writing games. I mean, like there are some games out there that are primarily faceted around that style of game plan. It's just something that you would think in our current environment might be more attractive to people.
Well, yes, it turns out to be quite timely in that respect, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. I'm gonna say I've been reading through the quote unquote history chapter of this book, like world chapter, and I'm not finding there's so much mage in that chapter still. So if anybody is out there listening and they think that it's just gonna be like a history of the world as it was, no, every single paragraph has story hooks in it. It is very much that Matthew Dawkins school of make sure this happens,
Right. Yep.
Oh yeah, this book is overflowing with mage. It is so crammed full of this. This is not it's less a Victorian book and more a mage book, if that makes sense.
So you're saying it's just mage with monocle and a top hat and
No.
And we're back to Buster for Jones. I am going to wrap this up. It's going to be a little bit short, folks. And the only reason is because we've been having a little bit of connectivity issues.
I apologize for that. I'm not sure what is going on with my internet today, but it's not playing fair.
It's Brexit.
It's Brexit.
Right.
Yep. It's the tariffs on my internet connection.
I just want the listeners to understand why they're not getting their full hour there that we usually do. And unless we go on a tangent for the next 10 minutes, who knows? This podcast is not under anybody's control.
I'd be happy to talk about the audio adventure that we're doing.
Sure.
We can. Ian, do you have anything you want to promote? And also, where can people find you and follow you? There you go.
Everyone should listen Wednesdays to the Trinity Continuum Adventure audio drama that we're doing, Tales from the Aeon Society. And if they'd like to find me online, they can do so on Twitter at Von Aether. VONAETHER.
I think you were going to talk at length, and then you didn't.
Well, you said tell us where we can find you, so I did.
I said, do you have anything to promote? And
it's all gone horribly wrong.
I would like to promote our upcoming Indiegogo for Victorian Mage.
Trying to give you an outlet to ramble about the adventure thing, but whatever. Okay, fine. Chris, do you have anything to promote? This podcast is going to get really antagonistic for the last 2 minutes. Do you have anything to promote and where can people find your
Yeah,
portfolio?
sort of promote. Obviously, I'm really happy that Mage, it's not Mage, Mummy the Curse second ed has gone out to backers, and I don't know how long it'll be before that then goes to public release. But I'm really happy that's finally gone out. I'm really proud of some of the work we've done with that in the post
Yeah.
Kickstarter development. I think and initial
Mhm.
response seems to be really good to that. Pretty happy with that. I'm looking forward a lot to the forthcoming some of the Eon Trinity books that are in the pipeline that I helped contribute to write on, because it's always a delight to see those books come out, especially with the lovely artwork, etc. I haven't got much else to promote at the moment, apart from an upcoming Indiegogo crowdfunder for Victorian Mage. But apart from that, I have nothing sort of immediate on my part. You can find me on Twitter at Acrozatarim, and on various of the Onyx Path and various lines Discords as well. I think that's pretty much it.
I would like to point out that Chris is our newly minted Aberrant line developer.
Damn it!
This
I was
is-
holding on to that one.
Yeah, this is true. I didn't I wasn't going to sort of promote that just yet, because I was all the work on Aberrant thus far has obviously been other people's hard work rather than my own. But I believe I'm not sure when is
their
Aberrant.
credit.
When is Aberrant going up? Is it going to be out for sale soon? I hope. I'm not sure of the timeline there, but that's on its way soon. I hope.
Yeah, it's at the printer now.
I was going to say, I
fantastic.
think there's a patented Onyx Path soon TM.
Yes.
Right. Yep. That's.
But I had noticed actually I noticed about 20 minutes ago that's like, oh shit, the entire Aberrant creative team is on this all on here as well.
Yes. Yeah, and that's been a real delight to step into that role. I'm looking forward to working on various Aberrant products in the future. I would promote any of them that were at this moment just coming out, but as it is, we're in the fabled soon TM stage currently.
All right, Eddie, what about you? Anything to promote? Follow you, find you?
Yes, I'm gonna. I have some experience with rambling and digressing, so I'll go ahead and take this on. Ian mentioned briefly the adventure radio drama, which, by the way, if you're not listening to this, one, I'm not sure how you're doing that because it's part of this feed, but two, it's really, really great and you should listen to it. It is leading up to our Trinity Adventure Kickstarter, and that is very clear. I mean, it's not Kickstarter as a generic crowdsource thing. It's going to be on Kickstarter, so that's will hopefully help people understand what our strategy is a little bit more here.
Mhm.
So definitely keep listening to that. At the end, we'll do a compilation episode, so you can have all 6 episodes in one nice meaty file if that's how you prefer to listen to things. And definitely huge thanks to Broken Bard Studios for putting that together for us. It's been a lot of
Yeah.
fun to listen to that and really, really entertaining. And I enjoyed writing the scripts for that, actually. That was something that I didn't expect to do, but I got to do it, and it was a ton of fun to just go wild and play in that space in a way that I don't normally get to do. But
Go
aside
wild.
from
Go wild, Eddie.
go wild. Aside from that, you can find me at pugsteady.com, and from there you can get access to all of my social media accounts.
Except your secret ones.
Well, those are secret. Those are for mine.
No, follow Eddie. He's fun. He talks about dogs a lot.
I do.
And his new dog, Darby.
Darby's the best.
Darby's great. Darby's just a sweetheart.
She's always upside down, but she is the best.
Lydia's always upside down too. We just have
They should
upside
get
down
together.
animals.
They should have a organization of upside down animals.
Yeah, I think Lydia would be terrified of Darby. I'm not sure she's ever even seen a dog. So, either way,
Ooh.
I've been your host, Dixie Cochran. You can find me at Dixie Cyanide on pretty much all social media. Everybody has already plugged all the things I was going to plug. And so, as always, many worlds, one Pathcast.
Next time on the Onyx Pathcast.